I told you so. I know that's kind of rude, right? But it's only fair. I get to say it at least once. But it looks like Eastern Gateway Community College, it's going out of business in October 2024. And the fact that the college was rated by what looked like every government agency. I told you in my video, Eastern Gateway and the Endless Buffet, about the tens of thousands of dollars we spent on food for ourselves every year. In the Crimes and Misdemeanors of Jefferson Technical College, some of the dark sides of the college. Criticizing is easy. I told you about how the third president was basically a schnook. In multi-million-dollar fraud, I explained how we fleeced Jefferson County out of millions of dollars for education that we didn't even provide. But in this video, I'm going to tell you something my coworkers would never admit to. That you were somewhat misguided in voting for our levy for over half a century. That's the nice way of saying suckers. But I do hope your hearts were in the right place. I also hope you use this as a cautionary tale for all the other levies you're, well, let's just say misguided into voting for. I believe ours attracted bad people and made us fat, stupid, and lazy. Literally. I'll come back to that. I worked at the college for 29 years, 1984 to 2013, and here are 10 reasons why you shouldn't have voted for the college levy. Number 1, fraud. We committed massive fraud. How can it not be considered fraud? We looked you in the eyes and we told you what a credit hour was. It's a measurement of time. 50 minutes of instruction each week for a semester. The government set this measurement. The federal government uses it on some of the college funding. The state uses it on how they funded us. We used it in calculating your bill. We used it in setting instructor schedules and based their paycheck on it. Other colleges used it in transferring our classes from our college to their college. We used it in transferring their credits from their college to our college. Employers use it to get an idea on how much education and training you had as a student. We used it to figure out when you graduate. It was important. But so many students can tell you stories where their instructors didn't show up, when their instructors skipped finals week and just gave the test early. Worst of all, teachers who would let their students go home an hour or two each week. Teachers can tell you stories where they were called and asked to teach a class a few hours before the semester started and didn't give them time to prep for the first class. So the students missed the entire first week of class. All of this got really bad under the third president and the executive academic vice president. I sounded the alarm bells each semester, and they did mostly nothing to fix the problem. It was easy, too. Part-time instructors were contracted for one semester at a time. Don't invite them back. In my heart of hearts, if we lived in a just society, the third president and her executive academic vice president belong in jail for fraud. It's fraud. If a furnace repair person came to your house and said it was a 10-hour job, stayed for 1 hour, but billed you for 10 hours, you wouldn't pay the bill. If you paid for a new roof and they only changed the shingles, you'd get a lawyer. So why should taxpayers have put up with this fraud? Number 2, we didn't squeeze your tax dollars hard enough. If I give you money for education, I expect you to buy things like chalk, computers, reasonably comfortable chairs for students to sit on. But we spent tens of thousands for food for ourselves. I carried home taxpayer-funded pizzas, bottles of wine, cookies. First time I ate at Red Lobster, you paid for it. I have a whole video called Eastern Gateway and the Endless Buffet. This is the fat, stupid, and lazy. The third college president allowed students, the public, and employees to print out unlimited copies from computers. During her reign of stupidity, hundreds of thousands of tax dollars walked out the front door in the form of things like recipes, video game walkthroughs, and pornography, while just about every other organization charged 10 to 25 cents per printout. We built boondoggle after boondoggle, such as heated sidewalks that didn't work, and that two-story addition in front of the college that only has one floor of classes. Taxpayers spent hundreds of thousands of dollars heating and cooling all that empty space over the years. What about all the money we funneled to our favorite charities? Over the long years, we gave money to renovate an old movie house, endless man hours to another charity. You saw the fifth president on the news bragging how the college sponsored a church event. They did that at least twice. I love the church event, but how many churches in Jefferson County? 100, 200, maybe even 300? Seems like a lot. We picked one. If I had put a levy on to fund a church, would you have been outraged? But you stood by and you watched the college brag about it. Didn't we act like a charity? We are so underfunded, so please vote for our levy. The library had a plaque saying a renovation was done partly through a donation. Many of the library books said donated by inside the covers. The building across the street had a person's name on the side because of a donation. The money we asked for, the foundations, scholarships, student groups, all the while we were taking your money and giving it to someone else, like you were too dumb to pick your own charities. But for some inexplicable reason, you kept voting to give us more money. Number 3, you paid for things twice. I'm not exaggerating. Instead of bringing some of your federal or state tax dollars back to Jefferson County, we often took the lazy route and just paid for things with the levy. That's some of the lazy and fat, stupid, and lazy. Such as that ridiculous electronic sign on Sunset that we first put back in the 80s or 90s. It only worked for a few years, and we had to keep buying tarps to throw over it because we couldn't get replacement parts. The second president bragged how great it was to pay for it with the levy instead of going through the state. We were told it gives us local autonomy. Then years later, the third president gave the whole college away through the expansion. So understand that. You gave money to the state in taxes that we could have been aggressively applying for and bring your taxes back to Jefferson County, but chose to let that money go elsewhere in the state while we passed the hat a second time to have you pay again. Those tax dollars went to another college or to put sidewalks in Toledo instead of your college asking for them. Number 4, racism. Was the college racist? Wasn't it obvious? Tell me any African American full-time instructor that was hired by the college in the first 45 years. I talked to employees who were there when the doors first opened, and no one could remember anyone. How about full-time secretaries or deans? I attended a meeting once where the topic was, why doesn't black students come to the college with the same per capita rate as white students? I would think someone would have had the guts to say, well, how do we educate and attract a community if we don't look like the community? No one did. I'm going to tell you a secret. The thing every institution operates with a levy fears most. Having a group peacefully protesting on the public sidewalk, peacefully carrying signs saying, recall the levy. Public library, fire department, senior citizens, if they have a levy, all of them fear this. If 10 of you would have marched peacefully up and down carrying signs saying racist and recall the levy, the college would have invited all of you in and gave you donuts and coffee and made you promises. I don't care if you were black, white, yellow, or pink polka dotted. It would have only taken 10 of you. But no one came. Who had your back? The county commissioners? City council? Any special interest groups? No one. That's why you need to pay attention. Number 5, nepotism. I don't recommend working for an institution thick with nepotism. The college loved hiring relatives. In 20 minutes or so, I filled a blank sheet of paper with 50 names of relatives who we gave jobs to. So that's 100 people related to somebody else. I only included husbands and wives, parents and children, brothers and sisters. That's my short list. I'm sure it's much longer over the years. It gets longer if I include cousins and friends. One department was hiring their employees all from a club they belonged to. Do you think all of these people were the most qualified? Of course not. This led to an overall dumbing down of the college. The stupid and fat, stupid, and lazy. It's statistically impossible that all these relatives were the most qualified. So many people took the time to fill out applications, give resumes, write cover letters, put on their best suits and dresses, answer endless dumb questions about their lives, only to find out later someone's brother got the job. Another endless group of victims and suckers of the college. If most of our employees were white, what color do you think their relatives were? People in Jefferson County tend to shrug off nepotism, but if you knew it helped cover over racism, you might have registered to vote. Number 6, lack of transparency. We owed it to taxpayers to be straightforward what we were doing with their tax dollars. Instead, we had secrets. I will admit most of the lack of transparency I knowingly witnessed happened under the paranoia of the third president. She probably got tired of people second-guessing her, mostly because she gravitated towards stupid. From a dean who wouldn't list instructor names on schedules because word got around about some of his full-time instructors and students tended to avoid signing up for their classes. How many times she would say this isn't for the public yet in a meeting. To how we kind of sprang it on you that we were giving away your hometown college to become the abomination of Eastern Gateway. At one point, the third president had department managers signing non-disclosure agreements at a community college, funded by federal, state, and a levy. What does that tell you about the trust she had in her own employees? How pathetic. Number 7, the Horizon Grant. I don't expect you to agree with everything on my list. I'm sure I might lose a few of you to this one. I never liked the Horizon Grant. This is where a student graduates high school and with a certain GPA, and we make sure they can go to our community college after they apply for other grants. I want you to picture a common scene in Jefferson County. A single mother or father with 2 kids. She is working 2 or 3 part-time jobs. She serves pasta for dinner 3 times a week to stretch her food stamps. She goes to a food pantry every so often. The clothes her kids wear to school is secondhand and come from donations that she sifted through a church basement. For some reason, she can never find a pair of shoes that perfectly fit one of the daughters. Then you vote for a levy and raise her property tax. We then funnel the money to the upper middle class to pay for their kids' education so the parents can take the money they saved and put towards a second SUV or a pontoon boat. That mother makes $70,000 a year and the husband makes $30,000 a year. And with $100,000 a year they saved up for their only daughter, who aged sequentially, not like anyone gets caught off guard that their kid's turning 18. The poor people, meanwhile, were eligible for the Pell Grant. I know the Horizon Grant may have helped some lower middle class who didn't put a few dollars away and who didn't want to get a small student loan. To me, it robbed the have-nots to give to the haves. Also, I didn't like how we kept quiet when some people thought all the levy money went to the Horizon Grant. Probably only a third actually did. We had plenty of leftover for raises, donuts, and to keep the cash flow going. Number 8. Other colleges. You know, many colleges don't have levies. Couldn't we have benchmarked them? We could have used those institutions as templates on how to run a college without robbing the taxpayers. Number 9. The false mandate. Maybe I put this one in just for me. After a levy vote, some vice president would stand up and say, "You know what this tells me? That Jefferson County likes what we are doing." This could come up in any meeting where someone disagreed with management, but the voters like what we're doing. No one mentions how much the voting deck was stacked. We had 200 employees. Not only their votes, but their family members voted, their friends, their neighbors. We had catering companies all over the place benefiting from our gluttony. Hardware stores who made some good money from our purchases. 1,700 students who we hinted at higher tuition costs. We almost had the votes before we even started campaigning, so the racism, nepotism, gluttony, and boondoggles continued. Number 10. We gave your college away. We preached for decades about local autonomy, how we could operate and keep decisions local, and that's why you should give us a levy. Then under the third president, who found she was a small god in a small universe, wanted a bigger universe. She lied to the employees and told us we would have 9 of the 12 board members. After it was a done deal, we suddenly had only 3. The third president didn't seem like she understood the sacrifices taxpayers made for all those decades in Jefferson County. I doubt if she cared. But after the abomination was created, you voted again to renew the levy? What? That was the craziest approval of all. Levies are good for when an institution has a temporary hurdle to get over, but sadly they are used to try to create a permanent cash flow. Let alone we operated on a 5-year plan, but asked for a 10-year levy. The first question I like to ask any institution who wants to start a levy is, how are you planning to get off of the levy? Will you try to make this a one-time deal? The college went half a century. I'm sorry, suckers. We spent all of your money, we laughed while we did it, and you did nothing to stop us. For now, it's me, Camroy, here on YouTube.